Ringo Starr, the drummer who famously never hogged the spotlight, has long been the target of casual dismissals. He's just a lucky guy who played with the best, some critics have sneered. It's the easy opinion, the shallow one, ignoring the reality that without Ringo, the Beatles would never have been, well, the Beatles.
But why we got to this is because, you see, I'm left-handed, and I'm playing a right-handed kit. If there's any drummers in here, see, they usually go, you know, they go round the drum this way. Well, I can't do that. See, I can't go. I have to get this hand down to roll. So that's why everyone thought, wow, he's a genius, but all I was doing is trying to play backwards.
Starr's genius lay not in technical excess or over-the-top solos, but in his intuitive grasp of rhythm, his understated creativity, and his ability to anchor complex compositions without drowning them. For the few who still deride him, it's clear they're missing the forest for the trees. Ringo was no accidental bystander in the band's meteoric rise. He was the pulse, the energy, the element that gave the Beatles' sound its human heartbeat. Ringo wasn't the Beatles' first drummer, but he was the only one who fit. Before him, Pete Best had played with a hammering atom beat that worked for the sweaty clubs of Hamburg, but was too heavy for the subtler melodies Lennon and McCartney were beginning to write. Starr, by contrast, brought an entirely new approach, one built on balance, tone, and precision. He didn't bludgeon the beat, he coaxed it into the groove. His fills were sparse and meticulous, each tap of the stick placed with deliberation. He understood early on what many drummers struggle with their whole careers, that great drumming isn't about pushing to the front, but about creating an atmosphere where every element of the music shines. To see Ringo's impact, look at Come Together. No flash, no showmanship, just a languid pulse, a slight syncopation, and a loopy, spaced-out beat that lets Lennon's vocal glide above it.
The interesting thing with this pattern is that it's actually the bass that opens that song.
Yeah.
And, you know, John's words, you know, that's the intro. There's no, like, real verse or anything. And so we're sitting around, and it was just like playing with what he was saying and with what the bass line was doing.
Those 16th note triplets between the hi-hat and toms, that slight swing, they're instantly recognizable. Without them, the track would feel flat, stripped of its dark, mysterious undercurrent. Or consider Tomorrow Never Knows, where Starr conjures up a primal, hypnotic rhythm, as if he were drumming in some ancient ritual, anchoring Lennon's acid-soaked visions with a beat that feels both earthy and otherworldly. To this day, no one else can capture that strange, almost mystical quality Starr brought to the Beatles' songs, and it's a major reason their sound endures. Beyond technique, Ringo gave the Beatles a dose of raw relatability. While John's snarky wit, Paul's polish, and George's quiet introspection could sometimes feel larger than life, Ringo was the human face of the band. He was unpretentious, approachable, the kind of guy you could picture having a pint with after a gig. In 1964, when the Beatles made their American debut on The Ed Sullivan Show, 73 million people tuned in, and Ringo quickly became the unexpected fan favorite. The press loved his plain-spoken charm, the way he laughed off the hysteria and stayed level-headed amid Beatlemania's frenzy. Ringo gave the band a kind of warmth, a down-to-earth quality that softened their edges and made them feel real, accessible, like four guys you might actually know. Despite his relaxed persona, Ringo was deadly serious about his craft. Drumming was still in its infancy in popular music when he started. The Beatles emerged from a post-war Britain where the drum set was barely recognized as an instrument. Rock drumming itself was still being invented. Ringo became one of the pioneers, moving the drums from the background to a more central place in pop music. He wasn't imitating jazz drummers or trying to outdo the emerging rock powerhouses like Ginger Baker or Keith Moon. Instead, Ringo was inventing a style that made sense for the new sounds the Beatles were pioneering. He played not for technical bravado, but for the feel, a quality every great drummer admires, but only a few master. When Dave Grohl, a powerhouse drummer himself, speaks about Ringo, he calls him the king of feel. Grohl points out that Ringo had a gift for sitting perfectly within a song, for knowing when to lay back and when to drive forward. And if his lack of solos stands out, that was deliberate.
You're a fucking badass. Define the best drummer in the world. Is it someone that's technically proficient, or is it someone that sits in the song with their own feel? Ringo was the king of feel.
Ringo often avoided solos because he believed they could be more of a distraction than an addition. He once said that the drummer's role is to make the others sound good. He wasn't interested in the spotlight. He wanted the groove, the connection. Even when the Beatles tried to get him to take solos, Ringo kept it short and steady, underscoring his philosophy of music as a collective art. In The End from Abbey Road, he finally relented and gave listeners his version of a solo, brief, rolling, and totally in tune with the flow of the song. It's drumming that doesn't brag, doesn't shout, but nonetheless resonates because of how precisely it fits within the song's fabric. Outside the Beatles, Starr found a kindred spirit in another drummer known for his restraint and subtlety, Jim Keltner. Unlike the explosive John Bonham or the flamboyant Keith Moon, Keltner is the quiet genius of the studio scene, an artist's artist who has played for legends from Bob Dylan to Joni Mitchell. Ringo once called Keltner his all-time hero drummer, and their connection wasn't just musical, it was philosophical. Both men believed that great drumming was about nuance, about building a foundation rather than grabbing the spotlight.
Jim is my all-time favorite drummer. He's so versatile, you know, and the way he can play.
When Ringo assembled his first all-star band, Keltner joined, marking the beginning of a musical partnership that has lasted decades. Even now, whenever Ringo speaks about drummers, Keltner's name comes up, a testament to their shared respect and Ringo's unwavering admiration. The truth is, Ringo's influence extends far beyond the Beatles. Listen to the way he plays on Rain, where he uses ghost notes and accents to turn what could have been a straightforward beat into a textural experience. Each note is placed to match the song's swaying feel, making it a classic example of how Ringo played the song rather than the drums. Or take his part on In My Life, where he hits the hi-hat once per measure during the verse. It's the sort of unorthodox choice that gave the Beatles' music a spacious, open quality. Other drummers might have filled the space with a busy beat, but Ringo knew when to let silence speak. His restraint is what made the difference, creating moments that allowed the melody to breathe. If there's still doubt, consider the fact that major drummers across generations have taken inspiration from Ringo. Charlie Watts, Phil Collins, and Steve Gadd have all praised his approach, with Gadd once saying he admired how Ringo made everything sound fresh and unique.
Ringo, fantastic drummer, and he came in for a lot of stick, you know. I mean, there was a period when, in the 70s, I think, probably, when, you know, people like Buddy Rich were saying Ringo couldn't play, and everyone was sort of thinking it was very simple, but it just wasn't. If you listen to the drum fills on Strawberry Fields Forever, or A Day in the Life, or Rain is another example. I mean, it's just staggering what he did, you know.
Ringo didn't play to impress, he played to complement. Each beat was a choice, each fill a brushstroke that added texture to the Beatles' music. He didn't care about being the fastest or the loudest, and yet he was always memorable. Even his fills, the iconic simple patterns that fans know by heart, left an imprint, and that's no small feat. How many drummers can claim that listeners can hum their parts along with the song? So let the skeptics argue, let them dismiss him as just the drummer. They miss the point entirely. Ringo Starr was one of the greats precisely because he wasn't trying to prove anything. He made drumming an art of understatement, something that served the music rather than overshadowed it. In an era when technical prowess often steals the spotlight, Ringo's legacy reminds us that true mastery lies in serving the song, in being the bedrock that lets the melody soar. He made simplicity profound, and in doing so, he changed the way music felt, the way it moved, the way it breathed. That's the mark of a true artist, and that's why, Long after the echoes of Beatlemania have faded, Ringo Starr's influence keeps on beating.